Well, this is probably the one that you've been actually waiting for. The fastest TTK snipers. Now, there is only 3 sniper rifles inside Battlefield 6 at the moment, but let me tell you right now, these guns are so fun to play, especially on the bigger modes. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy playing sniper rifles in this game for very many reasons, but this video is all about what are the fastest time to kill snipers inside Battlefield 6. And when we cover this, obviously time to kill for sniper rifles isn't really too important, to be honest with you. We just wanted to title the video exactly that. But we're actually mainly going to be talking about the damage values and how quickly you can get your second shots off. That's kind of the most important thing when it comes to sniper rifles. Now, the data from this video has been taken from Battlefinity, as always, but we've also done some extra testing, and I'll let you know what we've actually tested along the way. First, let's quickly get through the boring numbers. So this is the mag size, rate of fire, bullet velocity, and ADS times. I did want to show you this quickly because 2 of which are super important stats, being bullet velocity and also ADS. We've not added in ADS for the other weapons in our videos, and the reason for that is because you could really build out to make your guns a little bit quicker, or you could just choose another fully automatic weapon. There's tons of them, but if you're in a sniper battle, there's only really 3 options of snipers, like I said, and we want to know which ones are going to be the more aggressive options. And as you can see, they all have around about a 300 base ADS, which does get worse with certain attachments, by the way. And this ADS time is actually not too bad, to be honest, for sniper rifles to start off with. You can improve it with certain attachments. When it comes to bullet velocity, they're all bar the SV98 sitting at 900, which I find extremely respectable for a base weapon. Again, this can be brought up with extra attachments as well. So overall, when it comes to the numbers of bullet velocity and aim down sight, these guns are not going to feel terribly slow. They're actually going to feel pretty decent for the most part. Now let's get into the fun stuff, and we're going to start off with headshot damage first. And again, the screenshot is taken directly from Battlefinity because they actually display this a lot better than I can do in a spreadsheet, and it's going to help you actually understand what's going on. When it comes to body damage, we will get on into that in just a moment because we're going to need to explain a lot more of what's going on with that one. But when it comes to headshot damage, it's all pretty straightforward here. If you land a headshot at pretty much any range with any one of these snipers, you're going to get a one-shot kill. And that factors in with time to kills, and then they've also kind of factored the time to kill along with how long the bullet travel time might be at those ranges. So as you can see, when it comes to the ESR, for example, the time to kill is 0 milliseconds, but then when you go on to the 55 to 60 meter range, it's 52 milliseconds, and then it goes gradually higher, right? And that is mainly down to the bullet velocity, because if it was instant shots, they would all be 0 millisecond time to kills, and that's not how it works in this game. You do need to factor in for bullet drop and also bullet travel time, and all of that is factored into these time to kill numbers, as you can see. But like I said, they all just take one shot to the head and you're pretty much getting a kill. The next part of this video is the most important bit, which is the body or chest damage, and I kind of want to explain this the best as I possibly can, so I'm going to try and get us both through this video, hopefully allowing you to understand exactly what's going on. So first of all, as you can see, you've got the ESR right here, and as you can see, it says 100 damage. Now this is its maximum damage potential, right? And I'll explain what this actually means in just a moment, and we'll go through all the numbers once again. But what I do want to quickly show you is the firing range. So as you can see, the damage numbers here says 100. When we go into the firing range quickly and we shoot a chest shot, which should be 100, it's 64, right? Which is not 100. And then as you can see, when we go further back in range, it's 77. And if you came from Call of Duty or any other game other than Battlefield, you'll know this is absolutely strange, because essentially the damage value is increasing with range. Now this happens in most Battlefield games, just so you're aware, that the damage value gets greater at range because that's their balancing mechanic. For sniper rifles, it actually works pretty well, to be perfectly honest with you, and the reason why these snipers feel so good. But these values in the firing range are completely wrong, first of all, so that's the only issue with this. So if you're testing snipers in the firing range, please don't. So that's one of the complicated parts out the way, and this is going to feed in to the next section of this video, which is the chest or body damage. Now, chest shots are obviously center mass, so if you are missing headshots, the likelihood is you're going to probably land a chest shot, because if you're aiming for the head and the bullet drops slightly below, you're going to hit the chest, right? If the enemy's standing up, that is. Now, we've got all the guns here again, and like I said, we've got all the damage values for every single range, and you kind of want to know how many shots they're going to take, how much damage each bullet is doing, and also your time to kill, which isn't really too important at this stage, I'll be perfectly honest with you. So when it comes to the ESR, as we've seen now, so the damage up close, so 0 to 55 is 80 damage. Now what we've seen in the firing range is that it was 64. So like I said, the firing range damage values are completely wrong. So I actually went in and rechecked the values for Battlefinity, and their numbers are actually correct. So that's one thing I do want to mention as well. I actually retested all this stuff for you. And as you can see here, from 0 to 55 meters, the ESR does 80 damage, and so does the PSR, and so does the SV98. When we get on into the next damage range, and as you can see, it's different for each of the sniper rifles. So it's 55 to 60 for the ESR, 40 to 45 for the SV98, and 80 to 85 for the PSR. As you can see, it's gradually increasing all the way up to that max damage value of 100 all the way to the right, like I said, with each one of these snipers. So essentially, the furthest you go with your range on these guns, you're going to get the highest basically body damage possible, and it's actually a one-shot kill out to the maximum range. This is going to make these guns way more forgiving, and when you're obviously compensating for bullet drop and things, you don't need to try and make sure you always land a headshot. If you do kind of miss it by a slight amount and get a chest shot instead, at those extreme ranges, you'll still get a one-shot kill. And I think that's a really fun way to balance the snipers, and most Battlefield players already know this, but this is my explanation for anyone else. And as you can see here, what we're trying to look for is the guns that have the lowest range in numbers, so that's the lowest meters, to get the highest damage output, right? So for example, the SV98 will be really good because at 55 meters, you're basically hitting its max damage value with chest shot kills. I'm going to give you a build for every single one of the snipers in this game because there is only 3, and that makes sense to me. The SV98's up first, and essentially at 55 meters, you can get that one-shot kill to the chest with this gun, along with a headshot, obviously. But that is crazy powerful, in my opinion. I think that this gun, in terms of like TTK or just max damage, if you want to call it, then this is that gun. Now, the only issue with the SV98 is the fact that the bullet velocity is a lot slower than some of the other ones, and that is also another really important factor when it comes to landing those shots at range and making those guns feel like they actually hit at range. So you're going to be compensating quite a lot with this gun for bullet drop, and that's something you do need to factor in. But if you do want to just kind of get those closer range kills and make sure you're always getting a one-shot kill, then this is actually a really solid gun. And if you're playing close quarters, I recommend using this one as well. Next up, we've got the one that sits in the middle, which is the ESR. So the ESR is kind of like the halfway sniper because it has a good bullet velocity, good ADS, the fire rate slightly faster than the other 2 snipers in the game. And overall, it has a middle of the pack when it comes to the max damage range. So instead of it being 55 like the SV98 is actually 75, which is still pretty respectable, but I do feel like when you use this gun, you're still getting that 80 hit markers almost all the time. I don't really know why, but especially in closer range engagements, it feels like you're still getting the 80 damage hit markers, which is a bit annoying, but it's still a pretty solid sniper. Lastly, you've got the PSR, which is locked behind an absolutely crazy challenge, by the way, and for no good reason, in my opinion, either. First of all, it does have the best bullet velocity of all the snipers in the game. That's one good thing that's got going for it. It does have the slowest ADS though, so that's one thing you do need to kind of factor in, which is not massively important at super long ranges, but again, it's just something that the other snipers have an edge on. And then the main issue for me is the fact that the maximum damage range is 100 meters, and if you're going to get it at 55 or even 75 with the other 2 snipers, it's kind of a hard sell in my opinion with this one, but that's going to come down to mainly preference, which we'll get on into just now. Rounding this video off, I just want to talk a little bit about the snipers themselves as a general whole, and also how to get the most out of them. Now, it goes without saying, make sure you're using the recon class when you're using sniper rifles. Now, you can use them in other classes and you can still do relatively well, but you're also going to get improved weapon sway, quicker rechambering speeds, and also better hold breath as well. So all of that together is already really powerful, but not to mention you're also going to get that kill to the head. So if you land a headshot, the enemy player cannot get revived. I think that's probably one of the most important things, to be perfectly honest with you, because the amount of times you get a headshot and someone gets revived on the enemy team and you're kind of still doing that backwards and forwards sniping battle, you kind of want to win those fights if you're landing your headshots. So like I said, the recon class is going to be very, very pivotal in you winning those fights. Off the back of the class system, and when it comes to attachments, you want to focus on a couple of key stats. Bullet velocity being one of them, as the damage values won't really change with any of the attachments anyway. You also want to focus on keeping your aim down sight time as aggressive as possible. You don't really want it to slow down too much because the gun is going to feel pretty clunky when you do that. Make sure you try and crouch or go prone when you're using the sniper as well, by the way. This is just an extra tip as it reduces a lot of the sway. And also, you want to make sure that you're reducing that scope glint as much as possible because it will allow you to stay a bit more covert when you're actually trying to take those shots. The scope glint in this game is crazy. You can actually see it from like 10 miles away, which is kind of good in a way, but also just like really bad if you're a sniper. So just make sure you try and reduce it as much as possible with either certain optic attachments or certain attachments that actually reduce the glint itself. And then it also spots enemies as well, which I don't think is too important, but it is an extra benefit you get by using recon. Now, when it comes to the sniper rifles themselves, the actual weapons individually, I think it really is going to come down to personal preference more than anything else. All these snipers are actually pretty good in this game. They all feel really strong. They all feel like they have their place in the game. Now, like I said, some of them have better bullet velocity, some of them have better damage values, some of them have shorter ranges, some of them have better rechambering speeds, but it just really depends on how you actually play Battlefield 6 as a sniper. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, you need to go for the one that's got the faster rechamber. If you want to sit back and snipe super far long ranges, then you're going to need to go for the one that's got the better bullet velocity. And then if you want to be somewhere in between and you just want to have the one that kills the quickest, then there's one for that too, right? So overall, like I said, each one of these snipers has their absolute spot in this game. They're all really fun to play, and in my opinion, sniping in Battlefield 6 has never been better than ever. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.